About 6.2 kilobits per second upload. It's not a very big upload, but I don't need a very big upload. Anyway, yes, as usual, I have to waste a bit of time because anybody that's sort of waiting for the stream to start is now getting an advert played to them. Now, it was suggested to me, why don't I create some sort of landing area so we have a couple of minutes of nothing going on at the start of the stream to sort of collect people together. And I wasn't altogether for that because I do actually put these up as VODs on the JavidX9 Extra channel. Perhaps most of you are watching it via that. And I don't want sort of 2 minutes of nothing happening at the start. I want people to just be able to watch the VODs without needing to skip the first couple of minutes each time. And then you fall into all sorts of other problems. I'd need some sort of background music and that kind of thing as well. Right. We've had nobody claiming to be first. Potentially nobody is watching this at all. That would be quite refreshing, actually, won't it? It says, even Twitch is saying, run a 1 minute ad break. Oh, Benjamin Rocket Runner, hello. Ah, yes, hello to you too. That's a new name. Excellent. Right, so tonight, as the title implies, the theme is going to be about standard file system. Right, K. Dominic, hello to you too. But we've got a major problem with tonight's stream. Oh, I've got a sound play. Hang on, I'll turn my speakers on. Subscribe to T1. Julian Nichols, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And hello to you too. Christian Seiler. Now, this is the problem. You'll see me sort of doing this. You may notice I'm lacking something important on my face. I've left my glasses at work today due to a conflux of events. So it's actually quite difficult for me to see, well, anything at all. So we'll see how well we get on. Ethereal, greetings. Hello. Sleeping Insomniac. Hello. Magetsev. Hello. Ranitz again. Sorry if I'm pronouncing these incorrectly. It's just because I can't see. Hello, Mega Revs here. Excellent, good stuff. Wolfers Racing. Now, I've called the stream Standard File System, and that's because Standard File System is quite an interesting thing. And we've got a new one here. Hello from Chicago. All I know about Chicago is it snows. And Leo from West Wing was from Chicago. There we go. It's my Chicago level ignorance there. So standard file system is sort of a new thing to C++. Well, I say new. It's new to me anyway. Dan Desteen got an ad for a horror film. The purpose of standard file system is to sort of make, well, file handling easier and cross-platform, because it never has been before. And in C++ 17, they created this standard file system sort of extension as part of the standard library, and it's got some useful things in it. And so I don't know it very well. I've sort of dabbled a little bit. But I wanted to explore it a little bit more today, because I want to implement a graphical user interface component which would allow you to do file selection. And I thought, well, what a nice thing to sort of learn about file system as well. And I also want to do some code, because the last few code zones we've not actually got round to doing very much code. File system is quite nice, though I've not used it too much. Yeah, I think it's quite nice too, but it has had some limitations which I've found frustrating. Boothroyd, hello from Yorkshire. Hello. I've got a white rose over there. Hermes, hello. Null Alternative, hello. Slice and Dice, hello. Voliant, hello. Standard Files is just copied from Boost. Well, you'll find a lot of things are just copied from Boost, because Boost is kind of the playground for anything that comes into the standard library. In fact, it makes no effort to hide the fact either. If we go to the file system library, it actually says the file system library was originally developed as Boost File System. There you are, you see. So nobody's claiming that it wasn't. Alex, hello. Speedy, hello everybody in the chat. I wonder what fun and games. We're talking about standard file system this time, Speedy. Alter Ego there. Hello. Yes, this is the problem I've got tonight, Alex. You may have noticed, to all of those that have just joined, I have no glasses. It's actually quite it's quite difficult. So I'll have things particularly zoomed in today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so a lot of Boost is sort of that area where people are playing around with things they want to submit to the standard, to the committee, and they'll sign off on it or not and bounce it back, and it just allows people to play with stuff in a reasonably specified way. It came up on the server actually this week about the nature of boost, and the question I believe was why do I hate boost? And well, I don't for a start, but I think it was a wider question: why do people hate boost? And I don't think people do. It's just boost is very big and it does boosty things. And once you start using boost, the nature of it is you're sort of tied into using boost. So if you want to deboost your program after the fact, it can be a little bit tricky. Nothing wrong with boost at all. It is just quite a big thing. Did JX10 take them? Well, potentially JX10 was involved because I had to run home from work today to sort out a JX10 matter, and that's completely confused my day today. You're eating bacon flavour crisps. That's good. Slice. Ooh, glasses. Munch, munch, munch. Yeah. I think that's part of the problem. I have actually sort of left my glasses somewhere, and I don't recall entirely where. And my glasses weren't cheap, so it's rather frustrating. Anyway, I thought we'll have this documentation up today because I don't know standard file system really off the top of my head. I'm going to have to sort of delve into it, and we'll sort of integrate it with a little bit of experimentation and a little bit of GUI development as well. But basically, from what I understand from file system, is that everything revolves around this sort of monolithic structure called a path. And you can manipulate the path in various ways, and a path is what you expect it to be. And file systems declares that there's three types of path. There's the absolute path here, which is the unambiguously identifies the location of a file. I guess that's a full link. The canonical path. Now, this one was a bit interesting for me because it's a path, an absolute path that includes no sort of relative elements. Well, duh, yeah, right. If it's an absolute path, of course it's not going to contain these things, but it actually treats that as a relative path, something different. So perhaps this is to accommodate slightly more esoteric use cases, or indeed Linux use cases, things I'm not entirely familiar with. It's quite a strange one. The canonical path is basically, so it's going to be /folder /folder/folder/file, but it doesn't necessarily have to be immediately relative. So something strange going on there. Maybe the chat can actually help out what's going on with that. You'd not be able to code without your glasses. It's quite tricky, but fortunately I get to zoom in whilst I'm coding on stream, so you guys can actually see the code on your mobile devices, tablets, and on displays you might not be sat right in front of. That's how we do it here at One Run Coder Studios. So I'm going to... actually, the Pixel game engine in C++ 17 includes the file system setup already, so I'm not necessarily going to have to pull that in. What I kind of want to do first is just sort of display the contents of a directory in a list box control that I've created. Now, at the moment, my list box control doesn't even respond to being clicked, so I don't know how far we'll get with that, but I thought it'd be interesting nonetheless. Let's see what happens with this. This is your 6th bag of crisps today. Well, you deserve to be sick. You have absolutely no sympathy for me. I thought whilst I was here, a lot of people use this as a source of information, and it's a great source of information for the C++ library, cppreference.com. There's another one as well. I can't remember, never remember what it's called. It's c++.com. It's not as good. And it's not as good because this is sort of the technical de facto standard almost. You can click on something and you get all sorts of horrible sort of syntactical descriptions of what's going on. It's exactly what you need when you need to know precisely how the language is constructed. So from that perspective, it's a good thing. However, I always think it's good to have multiple sources of information. And another one, which you might be surprised to know, is actually the MSDN. And the MSDN is a great source of information, far more in it than people assume. So you can actually look at the standard library C++ header files in Microsoft speak, if that's what you fancy. It might not be, but it's just a different point of view about how things are described. You see the entire standard library is actually there. And it's interesting. It's not as detailed as the actual reference, but it comes with different types of examples, and it usually describes things in a way which is a little bit more practical. This is how you do this, rather than this is what it is. Right? This is how you do something. Because I often find a lot of the examples in this format, they're terrible. Let's find something. We've got something with an example here. Directory entry, I don't know. Might not find anything with an example very easily. Is block file. Let's have a look. Oh, well, see, we're not getting anywhere. We're not getting very quickly with examples. There we go, as an example. Oh, you see, that's not too bad. I mean, the thing it's trying to do, though, is quite complicated straight away. If you're just trying to feel your way around the language, why is it creating sockets and things like that? So, yeah, not necessarily the way I would write accessible documentation, but its purpose isn't to be accessible, and I think we were discussing that in the sort of previous episode. It's not always about being accessible. So the MSDN also has the implementation of these functions of this interface, and also, one thing to bear in mind, Microsoft doesn't guarantee that its stuff is entirely standard compliant. In fact, sometimes there can be little subtle differences. Don't ask me to name one off the top of my head. I can't think of one right now. But if there are subtle differences, it will describe them here. What have we got going on? Position is one I'm particularly bad about. Couldn't tell you why. Don't know. Some streamers don't even zoom into their code and expect people to be interested in their work. Yeah. I can't think of anything worse than trying to watch a programming stream where somebody's got their desktop like this. It's because, this is how I like it, because I've got a super widescreen 4K monitor, and this is precisely how I code. Only I'm... And you kind of think, well, great, that's good for you. What are you typing there? What's going on? What's happening? It's even worse when they're streaming this, and they don't say anything. It's just in complete silence. All you can hear is the keyboard tip-tapping away. So, do your audience a favour, zoom in. The CPP reference examples are good. Yeah, well, exactly. They're exactly right. They're good code, but yeah, completely unreadable. That's a good way to describe it. So, what have I been doing? Well, not a great deal, as you can probably imagine. I will show you a small control I've been working on, and it introduces a fun concept too. It's this combo box. Now, combo boxes are a little bit trickier because, like menus, they have something else that pops up. Now, you can see as I'm scrolling with the mouse button over the box, it's also zooming through the world. So I've not yet sort of nullified the events going through the GUI into the game engine in the background. But it's a standard list box that we created in a previous episode, well, at least talked about in a previous episode, and if you click away, it disappears. And this is using my floating window concept, so it's very similar to how the menus work. So you can go into several different layers of menu, but as soon as you change the focus from whatever's at the top of this stack of floating windows, they all disappear. And a combo box is no different in that regard. So what I'd like to do is create my GUI library is maturing, is to now start creating some utility GUI dialogs and things like choosing a colour, choosing a file, opening a directory, a standard message box, that sort of thing. Useful stuff that people can just straight away dial into and start using without any customization modification. And no doubt the one that most people ask for is how do we load a file or something like that. So we can go to File and we click on Open and it would pop up the relevant dialog box for us to use. I think that's quite a useful thing to have. Now, we're missing some. We're missing some features in order to make that work at the moment. Firstly, we don't have a text box, so I can't actually type in anywhere what the file path should be. But we do have a combo box, and I was thinking maybe we could use that for displaying volume information. Well, maybe not, because I think standard file system doesn't make that sort of distinction about volume. So things like on Windows, you've got your C drive, I've got my E drive, D drive, and all the others. On Linux, of course, that's not really a thing. And it does seem to sort of favour in that regard the Linux way of doing things. So I think it just bundles the volume letter as part of the path on Windows. Of course, people correct me if I'm incorrect here, because I'm learning about standard file system tonight. And we'll see how that goes. Just wanted to say your content is brilliant. Oh, Cryptic Dreams, thank you very much. It's a little bit light at the moment because I've got a lot going on in my personal life, which has meant I've got less time for making videos at the moment. Particularly today. We've had a rough day today. You need to do file reading, you can't read. Well, I can't help you there, Alex. Okay, so yes, combo box is kind of working, but more importantly, it's testing this floating window concept, and that's what I wanted to sort of demonstrate with the combo box. It'll be susceptible to all the skinning stuff as well. So even though I'm skinning everything with this sort of two-tone orange thing, right now it needn't be like that. Yes, good. Okay, so let's start by trying to create a new window. And I think all I'm going to do in that window for tonight is put in a couple of list boxes. And I want one to sort of display directories and one to display the files in those directories. So we'll just start with something as basic as that and see if we can work on how to navigate between the two. Because I don't even have an event handler yet that tells me when I've selected something in my list. My GUI doesn't at all understand the concept of a double click either. And I don't intend it to, because right now it can work quite satisfactorily on mobile systems. And so using sort of the Inscription interface, this will all work as well quite nicely. Do you have the layout for widgets yet? No, not yet, Magetsu. That's a great question. And in fact, it was something I was thinking about last night, just before, just after I fed Javid X10. I went on thinking I do want some sort of sizer system. Now, I'll leave that as a placeholder because you need to think about sizes from day 0, but I don't actually need to implement them just yet. As long as the idea of a sizer exists in some of the base panels, then they tend to look after themselves after that. So yes, I'll be putting in what's called a sizer. If you're not familiar with that in GUI speak, it's a way of structuring your GUI without having to specify the coordinates of the components directly. That's very useful. It can make your GUI, it can make actually in code quite complicated to construct, but it does mean that you're not having to manually calculate dimensions anywhere. And you can get it to position things where you want them to be. And you can have sizes that contain sizes of different orientations and styles, and that way you can build up quite sophisticated GUIs. They also have the advantage that if the dialog windows were resizable, then, which mine currently isn't, but if they were, everything would grow and shrink relative to the size of the window, which is not a bad thing when you consider you don't know what the content of your windows is going to be in advance. I don't know what display resolutions things might be. So, yes, I think, Magetsu, that's a great idea. We're going to have sizes at some point, but I always want the ability to manually specify precisely the location of controls as well. Yeah, it's a good thing to have sizes. Gruffler, hello, yes, you're late. Good evening from Germany. Staubfinger Coding. I'm sure we've read your name before. First time catching a stream? Are you sure about that? Maybe second time. I think I've seen that name before. Unless you've been on the Discord server. Anyway, good evening from the UK. It's currently 17 minutes past 8 my time. Right, so I'm going to start by just creating a third dialog object. Rather than sort of bootstrapping these existing dialogs, I think it's time to start thinking about this utility dialog and how we're going to implement that. Apostolisk. Hello, Saucy. Everybody's late tonight. What's going on? You didn't notice a longer item. Where have we got? Oh, a longer item. Yeah, it was to just test the highlighting. So even though space thing's sort of going on in the background, I've kind of jumped onto. I want to finish this GUI library, and so that's why you'll start seeing all these GUI bits and pieces related. Right. So let's close you down for now, and you can see the GUI itself is growing, right? I've got lots of files dedicated to nothing but GUI now. Now, when I distribute this as an extension, this will just be one big file. So I've written a tool which will help me combine all of these into one big file. Stow says I'm not on the Discord. That's okay. Lots of people on the Discord, not very active. People just tend to use it as and when they need it, really. It's the best way. Hello from Ireland, Irish Brews there. We've got a few people from Ireland in the chat tonight. Don't really understand a lot of the things done on here. These streams, still enjoy listening to you talking. You're a good presenter. Oh, well, thank you very much, Alta. I appreciate that. I think a lot of people are like that. They just... I think in terms of coding streams, I often find sometimes the people presenting coding streams can be a little bit harsh. I don't necessarily see the need for lots of swearing and shouting and screaming or necessarily putting forward their opinion. We can just talk happily about code and just keep it friendly and nice. Hi from the Netherlands, eJunkie64. Yes, sorry if I'm a bit slow reading your names out. Those that weren't here at the beginning, I have lost my glasses today, so I have to sort of squint at the chat there. Right, let's carry on. So I've created let me find it. Where have we got it? Dialogs.h, which contains nothing. So at the moment it's just 3 nested namespaces. How I wish C++ allowed me to specify nested namespaces rather than needing to do it like this. But hey ho, that's how it is at the moment. Yeah, I don't enjoy the shouty, screamy stuff. Bob Ross coding stream. Oh well, that's doing Bob Ross a disservice. What a legend Bob Ross was. I must confess, I enjoyed his shows growing up as a kid, and my wife and I still enjoy his shows today. Hi from Bohemia. I don't think you're from Bohemia. Doesn't C++ allow you to specify nested namespaces? Well, maybe it does, but I can't seem to make it do that. I don't think. Can you actually sort of define a namespace like that? Have I just been lied to all along? Is that not something I can do? Should I get rid of that? Is that valid syntax? Oh, it looks like it is. Ooh, learned something new there. Yeah, that's a happy little accident going on there. That mustn't be. That must be something that's reasonably recent, I think. Is it? Oh dear! If you can hear X10 crying in the background, then yes. The Rob Watling. Hello. Yes, hope I'm well. I'm actually feeling pretty good today. Yes, I have transcended tiredness. I've decided that tiredness is no longer a factor in my life. As I fall asleep, rubbing my eyes on the keyboard. Okay, if that's an interesting thing. I didn't know you could do that. There you go. I learn something every day. I think this feature was added somewhat recently. Well, that's probably why. Keeping current is a thing. Yeah. Xtem seems to feel strongly about nested namespaces. Yes. Well, I mean, that does help a little bit. I hope there's no sort of implication problems. Maybe is there actually some implication problems? Because if now I create a class in here, so let's try this. So if I create a class, what are we going to do? File select. And I'm going to extend that from here. We're full on Java programming mode at the moment. I'm going to inherit from what am I inheriting from? I want to inherit from panel. Yeah, where does panel exist now? So GUI. Yeah. You see, that was my concern. Right, it doesn't kind of work, right? So have I got to be now? Yeah, I've got to now be entirely explicit with. No, hang on, I've included GUI common. So panel is OLC GUI panel. Yeah, it is just there. Thank you, Des4. Nothing wrong with Java programming. Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't think it's quite the same. My GUI common, that should include, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe I've just not included the bit that I actually want to include. Include GUI panel. I thought that was part of common, but we'll see. Maybe not. So now can I just do straight from panel? Yes, okay, I can. So yeah, schoolboy error number 3422. Right. Okay. Well, that certainly saves some nesting. I'm hoping there aren't other little sort of gotchas like that where I've now got to specify everything sort of absolutely all the time. I didn't think this was an explicit stream. Oh, we do lots of things explicitly on here. You need using namespace. I think maybe when we get around to the actual implementation, we'll see how that gets handled. Rather than sort of doing all of this from scratch, I am going to grab. Oh, apologies if the audio is clipping, by the way. Do let me know if it is clipping. I did watch one of the VODs back the other day and noticed my microphone is a bit close to my mouth at the moment. Where is my camera on? So here I'm creating a window. I'm just going to borrow some of the code that I've got from here. So actually I want to, it's not panel, I want to, it's window for a start, so that's a good place to begin. And I'm not going to do it all in one header file format like this, but I do want to sort of just get some of the basics down. We'll copy those for the time being. grab all of that junk and throw that in here. And we'll start tidying this up a little bit. So it's file select, and it's going to be a window. I guess I have to do GUI window now, don't I? Come on, come on. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. There we go, got there. File select, so that's going to inherit from window and pass in some stuff. We'll have a slightly more sophisticated constructor in a minute. I'm just going to get rid of all that for now. We don't want to position anything in construct line. In fact, I don't even want the bodies of the functions here. So I do want on notification because that's going to be important. What else do we want to grab? Let's go back to the header file. We're going to have some controls, but what I want is this little factory function, which is sort of becoming a significant component of my little GUI system. Let's throw that in there. In fact, I don't want that bit just yet, do I? Okay. Copy and paste a bit more later. Ooh, hey. Right, it's not that. It's a file select dialog now. That's better. Position is there, and then we're going to specify some additional parameters in there too at some point. File select. That's fine. Construct the content. Construct content is yes, it's a dialog this time. It's going to do it not resizable. It's going to have file selection. False, true, false. This was for the title bar. It has one menu bar. It's not resizable, sorry. It has a title bar. It doesn't have a menu bar. It doesn't have a status bar. It doesn't have a toolbar. Okay, construct content. I just want to make sure I know where that is because that's part of window. Okay, that's good. That's good if that's the case. I'm going to change the names of some of these functions. That one should probably be construct window. That's an internal one hidden behind the window class. Right. Starting from there then, let's grab all those and right click and go to quick actions and go create the bodies of these things. And we'll go, oh yes, so it does sort of like fully populate those. That's getting quite a mouthful then. Now, I'm just going to go back to the camera one and grab the... I'm cutting and pasting, as you can tell. It's a bit easier. We haven't even got to the file system stuff yet, have we? Yeah, but we will do. Right. So we've got file select. We've got some functions. That one doesn't do anything. That one's returning a boolean. We'll now just get that to pop up in our main engine. So in GUI.h, which is sort of the prototype header file, that's where everything's getting included. So hash include GUI dialogs. Now, I expect dialogs will become a very large pair of files because I want lots of utility in these dialogs. Now, let's catch up with some of the chat here. Christian Silent, it's a 17 feature. Okay, interesting. Starfleet Clone, hey, good to see you. Good to see you too, Starfleet Clone. I do catch you sort of hanging out on Languages CPP on the Discord server. It's good to see there's actually 3 or 4 people in that chat that really know their stuff. One of whom is Starfleet Clone, like really sort of into the nuances of the language. So it's good. It's good that we've got people like that in the community. As I've demonstrated, people look up to me and say, oh, yeah, you know, Jeffrey Techstein, he knows a lot about C++. And tonight we learnt something new about C++. So there we go. Java and C-Sharp's obsession to public-private keyword spam is just ridiculous. Yeah, I think so too. There's no need to have it on every line. I guess that's just lazy compiler writing. It's easier to do it that way. Constant reference overloaded parameters exist in C++. I thought those didn't work. Yeah, they do. Right, so... I've completely lost my flow. Where am I going to? What we're going to is main. Right, there we go. And we want to somehow pop up this window. So we'll go and find where are we actually adding windows. We're probably going to go to a header file somewhere with windows in. Main. So this is going to be a third window that I'm going to throw up on the screen. GUI, cameras, GUI. There we are. Okay, we'll keep those where they are for now, and we'll just do another one. Standard shared pointer. Now it's not st GUI this time, it's OLC GUI dialogs. Ugh. Modern C++ eat your heart out. File select. There we go. mdlg file. And we will now go and create that and add it to our GUI manager as part of the onUser create function. So here we've got creating all sorts of bits of GUI, and we probably don't need to create the other two windows. It's just whilst we're sort of debugging this GUI stuff. File equals OLC GUI dialogs file select make. And I'll pass into that. Yeah, we'll make it reasonably big. Oh, we'll use the default size. But the actual position, I'm going to put it at, let's say, 50, 50 for now. And we'll add that to our GUI manager. GUI manager.add panel mdlg file. There we go. Oh, clumsy. With the size of this, I think everybody can learn something new. Yeah, no, this is exactly what one low coder should be about. Is just learning things, and nobody's giving anybody a hard time about it. Especially me. Nobody can give me a hard. Well, actually, everybody gives me a hard time about stuff. Compiler writers are wizards. Do you know what's more difficult? I don't know. I've never really sort of written a complex compiler before. I have written a compiler, but I think if you wanted to write a C++ compiler these days, it's tricky. The parsing alone is tricky, and then actually doing all of the optimizing stuff, I think, is phenomenal. And that's where the real wizardry comes in. The sort of how you sort of reverse engineer this sort of syntax tree that you've constructed and go and begin to identify actually this can be made simpler because. I wonder with like heuristic analysis going on and all that kind of things in a compiler. Fantastic stuff, yeah, absolute wizards. Completely agree with that statement. We all get a hard time from you as well. That's true. I do like to wind people up. Something rotten. Right, okay, so we've added that to the thing, so hopefully, let's try a test compile, see what happens. Hang on, that says Gondar, I think. Sorry, Gondar, if that's not right. I've not got my glasses on, and the Twitch chat has never been readable. The web designers behind the Twitch backend have just never thought these things through. Got a nice, on my screen at least, it's a nice deep purple name on a light grey background. I can barely see what it is. So let's just start that up and make sure that we're getting at least the very basics working. So file selection. So we've got our dialog up and running. So to this, to begin with, I'm just going to add a list box, and we'll get that to, I don't know, we'll try and list the files in our working directory, I suppose. It's a place to start, isn't it? Because I don't know if we can do things like wildcards and stuff yet with standard file system. LLVM. Do you know, I experimented with LLVM back in university when I wrote a compiler, and we might have a dedicated episode about this tool that I wrote once. I keep threatening to talk about it, but it was I did look at using LLVM, and at the time, the documentation for LLVM was almost non-existent, and as much as I wanted to use it because I wanted it to make a sort of a standard tool chain out of it. No, I shied away from it. Ended up writing the parser and everything myself. Cheese Lover, yeah, we don't have anything fancy like that on our simple channel here. The project is Space Thing, but tonight we're looking specifically at a GUI implementation of a file select dialog, which doesn't sound that sexy, does it really? But it's a way for me to learn about standard file system, which is what we're going to be using for the back end of this, whilst at the same time debugging these custom GUI components that we're creating. And in the background you can actually see there is some space things going on. We've got an asteroid field over here, and we can place satellites and all sorts of things. There's planets and moons. These are not just So there are actually planets and moons there going on in the background. So all sorts of things happening on this. But right now we're going to look at how we can select files. We don't often get much coding done either on these things. Twitch UI is atrocious. It's almost proof. Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good thing, the Twitch UI. There's so much clutter on my screen. Have you heard of Jai? Yeah, I've heard of Jai. Yeah. Hello, Jared. How are you? I'm okay. Can Seat. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Again, I've lost my glasses. I've probably put something on the screen that says I've lost my glasses. I can barely see the screen today. Maybe you can make your file select dialogs show a tree view of the files. Expandable nodes, maybe. Oh, yeah, we'll just throw that together. Starfree Clone, no problem at all. I was going to begin by just having one which a combo box which lists volumes, followed by two list boxes. One which is directories, which is navigable, and one which is the files in those directories. And then at the bottom, a text box, a cancel and close button, and perhaps a new directory button too in certain circumstances. So it's going to keep it very, very simple. Because right now I've not even got the code to select an item in the list, so we won't get that far tonight, but we will be able to perhaps list some files and display them on the screen. It should be very exciting, shouldn't it? Oh, we've got some sort of raid going on from... we'll have to zoom in on this one. Avik Torov. Oh, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. There we go. Yes, well, if you're welcome to the channel, if you've not seen the channel before, this is my Space Thing project. It's currently tonight we're looking at making it into a file thing project instead. So this is a custom little GUI framework I'm working on in my little pixel engine here, and we're looking to make a standard GUI for file selection. That's roughly in a nutshell what we're doing. And at the same time we're also navigating a solar system. It's all a bit strange and a bit crazy. What the hell is a raid? Yeah, us sort of old fuzzy-duzzies don't necessarily understand all the Twitch lingo these days. I believe a raid is when one streamer finishes, they sort of pass on the audience to the next. Now, I've always wanted to sort of raid people, but nobody ever sort of suggests anybody to raid. And I've got a feeling that if I press the raid channel button, things that I don't want to happen will happen. So who knows? Anyway, let's get back to doing some. We want to put a list box on our dialog, don't we? So we'll start with that. So let's go back to our dialog CPP file, and on the onConstruct client, this is where we construct all of the controls that we're expecting to be on our user interface here. So let's go back to the dialogs.h, and we know that somewhere in here I'm going to have a couple of list boxes, so let's bang those in. I'll need to include those up here, won't I? Hash include GUI list box. Now I can't remember the syntax to my own code. Right? We spend so long doing these things that I've forgotten what I wrote 8 weeks ago. But we'll see how we get on. So standard shared pointer, and that's going to be for a list box. MP list. Oh, should we call them directories or folders? Let's. We'll go for folders. We'll accommodate all of the new people. Right, P list folders, and we'll also have one for files as well. MP list files. Perfect. We'll have to go and create these now manually. Now, as we were saying before, when we get to Bash, do we have sizes and things? We don't currently. So I'm just going to manually specify the pixel locations of where these windows should appear. On the body of the dialog, of course, not the screen. Billy Pally 73, hello. Yes, sorry if I'm squinting. I've forgotten my glasses. I don't know where they are, and I can't see. Directory. I knew. See, like, you can always tell who are sort of the hardcore from the don't care so much crowd, and it's the don't care so much crowd that's called things folders. I've always called them directories, but then folders kind of makes a bit more sense these days, right? Don't know. At least we're not calling them filing cabinets, right? When call our hard drives filing cabinets filled with folders that contain files. Anyway, so what would you call our things? We called one MP list folders, and we'll do our list box make, and we can specify in our make function the parent. Now, the parent on this one, I have to be a little bit cautious because we're constructing a window which has a client surface. So that's actually client. It's not this which you'd expect when you're constructing pretty much anything else. So that's what we're constructing on the client, and we're going to give it the position. We'll start off with things being about 4 pixels in from the top corner of the client space, and we'll position things. Let's see. One of the reasons one of the things I tend to do is not bother with the size here. I actually override the on resize event just in case, but we can put in the size today. We know that it was what was it, 400 by 200 when we created it. Let's have a look. It was, by default, yeah, 400 by 200. So let's go and have a look at the thing, 400 by 200. So if we know it's 400 by 200, then I know that the height is roughly going to be probably something like 160. So we'll call that one, we'll do that, we'll do it 200 wide by 160 high, just to get us going. So it's all just to start with. So if we have a look now and we'll compile that, what we should see, if everything's worked, we should see a list box, an empty list box appear on the dialog. Have a look. Hang on, on my desk here, we did this as a show and tell not so long ago. That's not a hard drive. That's a hard drive. Huh? How nerdy is that? It's like how the save button is still a floppy disk. Yeah, it should always be a floppy disk. I don't know what shared pointer and weak pointer are, and I'm too afraid to ask. Never be afraid to ask. Shared pointers are smart pointers, as are weak pointers. So if you're not familiar with pointers, this could get very complicated. And there is a YouTuber that did a really good video about pointers, which you can go and watch to get the background on. But essentially, the smart pointers are not necessarily about memory management as much as it's about ownership. So the idea is that the components that I'm constructing sort of own the things that make them up. So if we've got sort of this list box on a dialog window, the dialog window is the owner of the list box. And so if the dialog collapses or gets killed, then it will kill off all of the things that it owns too. One of the advantages of the weak pointer is it allows me to test whether something still exists or not before using it. It also avoids circular references in tree systems, and a GUI system is intrinsically a tree system. So lots of interesting detail to why we're using weak pointer and shared pointer, but fundamentally you could just use raw pointers and live with the consequences. But I'm trying to write this in a fairly modern way. It's an exercise for me to sort of move on from C98, I guess. Oh, Alex. Can somebody ban Alex, please? Thank you. Yep. Yeah, so weak pointers are... If you ever did with normal pointers, if you ever did sort of a test for null, that's kind of what weak pointer does. There are some advantages to weak pointer, though, is it will create a shared pointer as and when you need it, which would keep an object alive whilst you're working on it. So you can guarantee that the thing that you're working on hasn't been deleted whilst you're working on it. So that's quite a useful tool, particularly in something like a GUI system. Yeah. And, well, they don't stop memory leaks. They try to stop memory leaks. So, yes, that's typically what smart pointers do. In a raw pointer, you'd use new, and you've got to have a corresponding delete. But a smart pointer is fundamentally scoped. So if it ever goes out of scope, it deletes whatever it's pointing to automatically. And there's a lot of interesting caveats there, because if something goes out of scope, then it deletes its thing, but it's gone out of scope. Nothing owns it anymore, and that's why smart pointers are really intrinsically an ownership semantic rather than a memory semantic. So keeping your smart pointer in scope all the time, or in the relevant scope for your application, is quite an important thing, and therefore moving things around that are smart pointers becomes interesting too. I do actually talk about that in my What Are Pointers video. It's only briefly about smart pointers. But yeah, you can think of it stops memory leaks, and it sort of adds this idea of ownership. Important stuff. They just make everything a bit wordy, though. That's the problem, because You now need things that look like this, whereas before you would just have panel star. It's not everybody likes them. I'm growing to like them a bit more than I used to, I think. Right, we wanted to test this program, so we've now created our things. We should have a file dialog with a list box on, and the list box contains nothing. So at this point, I'm going to try and populate my list, and this is where I want to start digging into standard file system. And I don't know the syntax for standard file system, so I'm going to have to dig up the documentation. That's why I've got these windows open already. So I guess if I want to list some directories. It looks like I've got a directory iterator here. So let's go and have a look at what a directory iterator is and how that works. There's probably going to be some example code I can steal. Let's see, what have we got here? So we've got a path sandbox. Oh, that's quite interesting. Is that some sort of crazy operator going on there? Oh, that's an interesting operator to have. So you can just sort of append directly to the object with the slash symbol. They must have overloaded the division operator. That's an interesting syntax. This is one of the things I don't necessarily like about sort of the modern C++ way of doing things. Is now this code functions differently to how other sort of file handling syntax looks. Very strange. Is there a reason you aren't using the native file dog for the OS? Yeah, sorry, Irish Brews. If you're sort of new to the channel and the things that I'm doing, I do everything in a technology called Pixel Game Engine, which is a sort of a single file include, which I've created to do all of my projects in. It's basically a 2D graphics engine, but the 2D graphics engine is entirely cross-platform by design. That's the point. So your code will work exactly the same way on Windows, Linux, Mac, or even now via Scripting in the web browser. And it's quite a sophisticated little 2D graphics engine. Obviously, people who know I'm biased, I'm going to blow, I'm going to boast about it. But one of the features it has is it is cross-platform. So if I start using native controls on the operating system, I've then got to have lots of code, which is if this, then do that. If this, then do that, which I don't really want to have. I'm also rendering everything in my own graphics engine. So all of the controls for the GUI framework are all entirely custom too. So it's really, for me, it's an exercise in learning file system stuff through the technology I've developed. And that's what my whole One Lone Coder channel is about. It's not necessarily about the end result. It's about how we go about learning new and interesting things. And that's what this space thing stream is about. It's an excuse to try lots of new stuff. And we've been learning about entity component systems, rendering techniques. We've learned about procedural generation and randomness. And we've learned editing tools and strategies, state machines. We've had all sorts coming up. And today it's file systems. We don't talk about Chrono Desk4. We just don't. We don't use that here. Right. So how do we do this? Let's go. So we want to look at directory entry. So I was just saying that this sort of slash syntax followed by strings. I don't know if I like that or not, but hey, it's there. So I want to. Looks like I create a directory. Well, that's creating the directory. I don't want to do that. I want to create a path, which I guess is the path to my directory. So let's start there. Let's create a path. I will, for now, I'll leave that window where it is. And I don't want to recursively go through the directories. I just want to go through the directories. So I think we want some similar code. So I'm going to grab this, but then we're going to butcher a lot of it for now, just so I don't have to type it all out. Right, file system path sandbox. Right, we're just going to call it. I can't just call it path. That's going to get confusing. I'd like to just call it path. Path current. And I'm going to stop it being const as well for the time being. I don't want to create any directories to work out of here. Now, can I specify that already? That's creating new files. Not interested in doing that. If I specify current path, is that going to work? Is that a way I can specify a path? Don't know. This is the things we're going to start learning. I don't want the cout bit. And what we might try doing is running this in debug mode and having a poke about what's going on in here too. Path current going on there. I've lost the end of that. Put those back in. I was watching on the Discord C++ forum a debate going on about whether you should now use these or a regular parenthesis. I'll let you guys argue it out in the chat as to which is superior. I tend to sort of mix and match these days, but I think on the whole I'm still sort of old school and biased towards this as a way of initializing things. Yeah, there are cross-platform stuff, and that's fine. But the purpose of my technology, the thing that I'm developing, is everything is included in the one header file. So you just include this one header file in your program, and everything works. You don't have to sort of import anything or download any additional files, for the most part. Caesarix 2596. Do you know if that was 2496? That would be a common suffix used on audio cards back in the late 90s. I had an M audio interface, a PCI-based interface called Audio File 2496. I think it was. Your videos make me reflect on life. Well, good. That's quite deep. You need to start using more C++. Well, that's debatable. The C++ is good fun. It's what I like, but it's not necessarily the best way to do things all the time, I don't think. It was Magetsub also mentioned tiny file dialog stuff, didn't you, the other day in one of the chats? The bigger debate is whether you use const auto or auto const. Oh dear. Well, I must confess, I would use, and perhaps we can get some of the nerds in the chat, I would definitely sort of do it like that. That would be my preferred way of doing it. That's probably not cool though. Or there's some horrible way that's wrong on like 300 different levels. Right, so once we've got going through this directory entry, what is this? So this is a directory entry. I don't know what a directory entry structure is yet. So let's go and have a look at what that actually is. Because, oh no, I don't want that. Where can I click? Where can I click? Directory iterator. So it looks like dir entry is actually just immediately stringable. That's quite good. But let's have a look at what this directory entry actually is. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Directory entry. Represents a directory entry. The object stores a path as a member and may also store additional file attributes. Okay, so it's just a sort of a collection of things, and it's got a path, and I presume it's got a string override, which allows us to just sort of grab it straight away. Okay, we're not going to be able to use that function for what I'm doing. So is there a path? Okay, so we can get the path. Now, does path itself have a way of getting the string value of it? File system path. Let's have a look at that for a second. Yeah, okay. So we can get the string stuff. Right. Good. Okay. So we're getting our directory entry. I want to add this to my list. So mp list of folders. Add. Incorrect. That's not what we want. We want get items dot emplace back. Let's try all this. Directory entry dot. So we're going to go for a path dot oh no, hang on. Dot path is a file system path. That seems okay. Dot path. Where's my IntelliSense? My IntelliSense has disappeared. Directory entry dot path. What am I doing wrong here? It is file system directory path const, no exceptions. So like nothing else to it. Why can't I bring up any properties of the path? IntelliSense fail. Blue Booger, that's a good joke. I like that one. Path can be stringed. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. I remember trying to get a string out of path and it was weirdly difficult. It's path. Oh, yes, there we go. Yeah, stating the obvious. Yeah, it's there we go. Excellent. Path.string. Once we've updated the list, we need to actually tell it that it's updated all of its contents. Now, I've chosen to do it this way because I want to sort of avoid flicker and things like that, if necessarily when it's re-rendering things. So I do actually have an update list contents, which goes away and sort of stretches the list box appropriately and manipulates the size of the gripper and that kind of thing. Right, so I don't know if there are any folders in the current directory. I don't know if any of this is going to work. Well, we'll see. Is it actually even going to compile? Have I even got the C++ 17 flag selected? Who knows all these things? They're all good questions. Why is there no implicit conversion to standard string? Because it's modern C++, Magetsu. We can't have that sort of convenience anymore. We have to be as explicit as possible, to the point where we're basically just writing the machine code. Stupid question, what exactly will spacething be working with file selection? Right, so yeah, why are we doing this? Well, one, we're learning how to do the GUI and stuff. But two, I do expect that as part of the development of spacething, we're going to want to actually manipulate files. We're actually going to want to sort of save the game and load the game and that sort of thing. Potentially even load in some of the configuration files, that kind of stuff. What have we got going on here? Oh, well, there we go. That's a good start. So that's it's actually listed all the files, though. So as a recursive directory iterator, that's not necessarily the behavior I was expecting it to give me. So that's actually giving me files. Interesting. Yeah, no, it's a bit old school. Don't use path C string. No, I think now you can always try and work it within strings itself. Okay, that's interesting. So that's giving me, as I scroll the list, I'm also scrolling in and out of the solar system at the same time. Right, that's giving me all the files. I don't want the files. I thought we had just directory iterator. Let's go and have a look at what directory iterator actually really means. Is it seeing the file itself as the directory? Why is it getting this kind of wrong, I suppose? Directory entry, let's go back another one, directory iterator. Yeah, I think I understand why it doesn't make any distinction between a directory and a file. The iteration order is unspecified, except that each directory entry is visited only once. The special path names dot and dot dot are skipped. Reports an error, becomes equal. A file or a directory is deleted. Yeah. If any in the pointed to directory entry we're calling, refresh makes it possible to examine. No. Okay. So have I just sort of misunderstood here? And this is actually basically it's doing the file stuff in a directory. So it's not actually listing directories. It's actually iterating through a directory. So it's sort of a nomenclature mistake there. So if we go back one, let's go back to standard file system. So we got, yeah, I guess that was probably the thing to look for. Is there actually any other type of iterator? And it doesn't look like there is. So I think, okay, that's actually giving us our file. So we probably need to check, is the path actually contain, is it basically a leaf? Or is it, does it have some sort of file at the end? So let's check, is it a file? Go back to file system and we can check, is directory there? So I guess if I just path in, so that says file status. Now I'm going to pass in the path. And if that returns true, then I can add that. Okay. So, now it's getting fiddly. If Ooh, hang on. What does it fall under? It's a standard file system is directory of our D. Oh, can you see the modern trend here again? Dot path. If that's a directory, then go ahead and add the items. Which just made me think at the same time we could probably do files. So let's go and add in our file one. mp list files equals listbox make p client. Now, in lieu of having any kind of sizing system right now, I'm just going to manually spec that as being 170 across by 4 down, and the same dimensions as before. No, they can't be the same dimensions as before because the whole thing's 400 wide, so then it's going to be, we'll set that to 180, 160, and we'll do the same for the one above. 180. And I guess I can take this then, now we know that what a directory iterator really means, and just check, is it a file? And if it's a file, we bang it in the other one, list files. What have we got? Is block file, is character file. I think is regular. Oh, really? Is regular file? Really? Is regular file? Well, there we go. List files, and we'll have our update list contents as well. I'll have a quick chat with the quick update of the chat and have a look. What's going on? Files. Hang on, quite a few things. It iterates the entire directory. Yeah, we've learnt that the hard way. How are you rendering all in the game? This is it's all using my Pixel Game Engine technology. All the text, everything. It's all custom. You can find out if each entry is a file directory. Yeah, there we go. Path tells you what sort of file it is, etc. So you're saying what I could do is actually take path, and then presumably I can interrogate what path is. Has parent path is absolute, is relative. No, there's nothing in there that suggests path has any properties that suggest what it is. I guess I could check it doesn't have an extension, but that's prone to being problematic, I suppose. Oh, right. So let's run that and see if that's filtered the two different data sets. Does it show a file path? No, not yet. It's regular. It's a scrapbook. Oh, looking like TT7N4 subscribe with Prime. Thank you very much. Well, at least it's compiled, so we can now check it to see. Well, that looks a bit better. So we've got our folders only on this side. Oh dear, I've positioned those in the wrong place. Let's cancel that, and we'll just position that in the right place to begin with. So I've specified that to be 170 over. I guess I should probably put that as being 200 over. Try again. Oh. Sounds like X10 has some bugs in their code. So we can select folders, and we've got files on this side only. That's looking very nice for now. Doesn't do anything because I've not put in any event handlers to start changing these around. So as we sort of click on these, I want the contents of this one to change. I also need to fake some additional ones as well, so I need a way of going back up in the hierarchy and a way of listing what's in the current hierarchy as well. So I guess that's dots and double dots and that sort of thing. So, very good. I think I'm quite pleased with... we actually coded something, didn't we? That's been the first time in a while we've actually coded something. Just make standard string variable for the path string. You'll regret the code otherwise later. Well, I mean, I think path is always immediately accessible as string, but path has lots of useful properties to it. Yeah, thank you, Dragonite. Yes, Pixel Game Engine. There we go. If you've not seen my YouTube channel, it's got lots and lots of videos on it now. I think almost 150 something videos where we look at all sorts of different bits of development and try to keep it all fun and educational. Anyway, this has been CodeZone, and we've overrun slightly. I only do sort of 1 hour shows, typically on every Tuesday. Atom Fighter 1010. I was rewatching your oscillators lecture just yesterday. That's from the synthesizer. Oh, that takes me back to the synthesizer. I'd love to do another episode on the synthesizer. At the moment, not quite getting the... that's why we're doing live streams at the moment, because they don't require quite as much time. Right, I think... I'm pretty pleased that standard file system is doing its thing. I'd like to know what that happens on Inscripton. I guess it doesn't do very much on Inscripton, but who knows? We'll experiment with that at another date. So until next time, could be Friday, could be Sunday, I'll let you know, but it will definitely be next Tuesday for the next CodeZone. Thank you very much for the raid. I've nobody to raid back, I'm afraid. I don't really know anybody on Twitch. Thank you for the 2 people who have subscribed. I appreciate that very much. And yeah, come and join the Discord server if you're not a member. And I'll see you next time. Everybody, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.